Hello everybody and welcome back to the F2 show by Inside F2. Now, Emily Sands, Aaron Harper, Lawrence Griffin. We've all been excited about this one all season long, haven't we? Today we're going to reflect on our pre-season predictions. Back in February, March time, Lawrence and Aaron and I, we recorded a pre-season podcast where we predicted what we thought was going to happen in the 2023 Formula 2 season. And all of the predictions that we're going to go over today, they're all from that podcast. So, it should be good fun. Emily, you weren't with us back then, so you're co-hosting with me on this one. You're basically just here for your reaction, really, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I'm here to... I've been played like one or two, like secretly, and I just think it's going to be a disaster. So I'm just looking forward to laugh, really.
Yeah, don't be afraid to really dig into the boys with their at times pretty horrendous predictions. Aaron, you look nervous, mate.
Yeah, my Formula 2 predictions, I know from memory, haven't worked out pretty well. I mean, I'm in a F1 predictions league on Twitter, and it's been a recipe of pick Red Bull, then someone else. And unfortunately, I couldn't do that in Formula 2.
Yeah, not quite the same in Formula 2, is it? Slightly more competitive this season, slightly.
Unless it's Singapore.
Unless it's Singapore. What a race. Lawrence, you... Oh, sorry, Emily.
I didn't say anything.
Cool, good stuff. James will cut that out. Sorry. Lawrence, are you nervous or are you all feeling confident for this one?
No, I'm perfectly confident. I'm sure, I haven't looked back on my own predictions, but I'm sure they were all absolutely spot on. And if they're not, then that clearly is more of a demonstration of just how unpredictable this sport is that we all love. And so I think we should really be focusing on that and not worry too much about, what I may or may not have said, at the start of the season.
Yeah, deflecting your wrong answers already. I like that. Okay, should we go into the first clip? The first question we asked back on the podcast was our first new winner of 2023. Aaron, should we start with your prediction? Aaron?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
If you want to. I thought you were just going to roll into it. I was like...
My bad.
I didn't know if I had a choice or not.
Right, here we go then.
Aaron, you're going to come first. I think Enzo Fittipaldi. Okay, because...
Enzo Fittipaldi, Aaron. You know what? Reflect on it. I don't think that's a bad guess. He's had one win all season. Your thoughts on that, Aaron?
Well, he wasn't the first winner because we actually had a new winner in the first race.
That is true.
And it was the guy who'd been in the series the longest.
Yeah,
so
exactly that. Yep.
All that experience for Ralph Boschung paid off, and none of us took it into account. So shows what we know.
Should we listen to why you said that, your rationale as to why you said that?
Go on then, embarrass me a bit more.
Fittipaldi, okay, because Carlin are on a good trajectory. They've got two really good drivers in Zane Maloney and Enzo Fittipaldi. It could easily be Zane Maloney because he's coming off the back of 3 feature race wins in a row in Formula 3, so don't rule him out. But I'm going to plump for Enzo as the next new winner. It's his chance. He's got to go and make it work. He's got to go and get that victory early on if he wants to win the championship.
Yeah, to be fair, back then I think that was a fair prediction. It didn't quite work out, but I don't think that's completely embarrassing, Aaron. I think you're all right there.
No, I don't. I think the rationale is fair enough. It's just like Lawrence said. It speaks to the competitive nature of Formula 2. You can't really predict those sort of things. Not with any certainty anyway. He has gone on to win a race this season, so I was half right.
Yeah, he has. I don't think that's a bad prediction at all. Lawrence, I don't know whether you remember this, but you completely bottled answering the actual question, and you went for a first feature race winner. Do you want to hear your answer?
Go on. We've started well already, so yeah, let's do it.
Exactly that. Right.
For Enzo as the next new winner, it's his chance. Ooh. He's got to go and make.
Sorry, that is the wrong one. That is
my voice has changed.
I have a prediction for the first feature race winner.
Go on.
And I think that's going to be Arthur Leclerc.
Wow.
Arthur Leclerc. Didn't quite work out. Do you want to hear your rationale behind that as well?
We may as well, I suppose.
Like, his style, I think, is very suited to Bahrain, the way he can move through the field. And I think as long as he manages the tyres well, I could see him doing something similar to what Charles Leclerc did back in 2017 and sort of blaze a path through the field.
Lawrence, your reaction to that, please?
I think that made a lot of sense at the time. I think I was about to say Charles, but Arthur Leclerc, as you know, the talent that we saw in F3, especially coming through the field. I think it was last season in Austria, the way he managed to carve his way through the field. I could just picture him repeating that at Bahrain, at a circuit where, you know, everyone's tyres fall to the bits in the last few laps. So it would have been a perfect story, and if I'd got that right, I would have looked like a genius. As it is, I haven't quite come off that well. Obviously, Arthur Leclerc without a win in his rookie year, it's not been easy for him. You know, some good showings of pace here and there, but yeah, definitely not perhaps performing to the level that I was imagining he might at the start of the season.
Yeah, agree with you there. Obviously hasn't won a race all season. Not a great start, boys. I'll be honest with you. Emily, your thoughts on the first set of predictions, please?
Yeah, I think Aaron. Yeah, I can see where you were going with that. To be honest, like, I don't think that was a bad prediction, and I don't think it was a what's the word? I don't know the word I'm looking for. Unreasonable. I don't think it was an unreasonable prediction. Because, yeah, it kind of did come to tuition towards the end of the season, just not at the beginning. But then with Lawrence, I feel like...
Lawrence, on the other hand.
You always play it safe by referring, like, to what the older brother's done. I don't know. Like, I feel like it's very safe for... No. Let me finish. Not just Lawrence in general. I'm not just roasting Lawrence, but, like, I feel like even I say it, like, oh, yeah, because, you know, Charles did that in 2017, like... It doesn't necessarily mean that Arthur is going to be as good as him. Do you know what I mean? So I can see where you're going with that. But it was wrong. So...
But it was wrong.
So, yeah. But again, I can see where you were coming from. And I understand why you might have thought that. But I can't believe it. I think Aaron actually was more on par with that.
Well, the scores are still 0-0. There was no winner in that one. But
hang on, I dispute that. Enzo Fittipaldi's won a race.
Yeah, but you said at the beginning.
That's not.
I said this one to the stewards.
That's not quite a goal. I think yours has been ruled out for VAR.
Ah. Thanks, Van Amersfoort Racing.
Very good. Very good. I like how Emily started that sentence, by the way, Lawrence, with I'm not going to roast that Lawrence. And she pretty much did roast you, Lawrence.
No,
so,
I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't attacking Lawrence. I was just saying, I think lots of commentators, like, within the motorsport, always, because there's so many, like, siblings. Everyone always goes, oh, well, look at what so-and-so did. And then does this mean, you know, their brothers are going to do the same thing? Yeah.
No, I get that. That's fair enough. Right, let's move on to the next one then. The next one is biggest positive surprise. Lawrence, let's go with your prediction first. Here we go.
The biggest positive surprise. Lawrence, we'll come to you first for that one.
I think it's difficult because I don't necessarily think it would be that much of a surprise, but I think Zane Maloney.
Zane Maloney. Interesting. Should we go with should we hear the rationale as well?
The incredible run that he had through the back of last season, I think it was the last 3 feature races he won in Formula 3, and then added to the mix that he got an outing in Abu Dhabi last year in a Formula 2 car. The way we saw Jack Doohan do the same the previous season, then he came to Bahrain last season and put it straight on pole. I think we could see Zane Maloney doing something very similar. I think he's a really talented driver.
I can kind of see what you were saying about the Jack Doohan comparison there. Your thoughts on that, Lawrence?
Yeah, I think that was fair enough. To have a run like he did in F3 last year is so impressive. And like I say, with that, like I said back then, even with the added experience of having raced before in F2 coming into the full season, I thought he was set up brilliantly. Obviously, it hasn't been that smooth. He was very quickly up to speed with a podium in the first race in Bahrain. And he was second in Zandvoort, so he does have that ability to qualify and to race well, but obviously not quite sort of come to fruition in the way that he might have hoped or the way that I might have predicted just based on that F3 performance. But it is hard, that jump up from F3 to F2. It's not always clear which drivers are going to make that jump. You look at someone like a Kushmini, for example. I think many people, after watching him in F3 last year, had quite expected him to do the things in that Campos that he has done. So yeah, it's always more complex than it seems. But I think Maloney definitely has the quality there, and hopefully will build that into next season.
Yeah, agreed. I think maybe not quite the season he was hoping for this season, but it could be a championship contender next season if he bags himself the right drive. Aaron, let's hear your one for this one, the biggest positive surprise.
It's not going to go well. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for months. Right, here we go.
Who do you think?
I'm going to go with Amaury Cordial.
Amaury Cordial, get these washed opinions off of the podcast right now. What is this? No, Aaron, biggest positive surprise. Right, shall we hear the rationale before you go into it?
I don't even think what is the rationale.
Right, we're about to find out. Here we go.
Had a very messy first half of 2022, which resulted in a race ban at Silverstone, I believe it was. And then he
doesn't sound much of a rationale so far, but we'll carry on.
Let me finish.
Austria, and was actually very accomplished. And he picked up some points towards the end of the season. He's had a little bit of a flirt with the law away from Formula 2 over the winter, but hopefully he can put his recent good form on the track to good use now with Virtuosi. And in Jack Doohan, he's got a really good benchmark to see just how good he really is. And I think, we could maybe expect some podiums from Cordial, because the pace is certainly there. It's just putting it all together and keeping things clean. And he showed that he can do that in the second half of the season. So, there's a bit more to come from him, I think.
There wasn't much more to come from him, unfortunately, for his sake. Aaron, how are you going to justify this one, mate?
I'm not. Just get your blowtorch out, Emily.
Emily, over to you.
You know what makes me laugh the most? Is that he says, "Oh yeah, Emery Cordial," and then he starts his the reason why he's chosen that by saying, "Well, he did get a race ban last year, and
learn from his mistakes."
Ignoring red flags here.
A race ban is a very serious thing. You don't just you have to do something serious to have a race ban. It
was just tying up of penalty points, really.
I'm sorry, I don't really know what to say about that. I just don't get it. I just don't know.
This is the reason Emily's on the podcast, for her thoughts and opinions like that. I think, shall we move on from that one fairly quickly, Aaron?
If you want to. We can debate it here if you want. I mean, he's got 8 points this season.
8 points.
How many did he get last season? Let's have a look.
Has that been a positive surprise for you?
It might have been a positive surprise to some people.
Yeah, fair enough.
How many points did Amaury Cordial score last season? He scored 26 last season.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, to be fair, the end of last season, Amaury Cordial, in the last 5 races, finished 6th, 15th, 7th, 5th, and 6th.
Okay, so yeah,
he wasn't completely off my rocker.
You can see it there. You can see where you were coming from there. But unfortunately, it's all gone a bit wrong for you, hasn't it?
Yeah. If he wins in Abu Dhabi, I will take it all back and I will eat
And
my
look like a hero.
Exactly that. Right, let's move it on then. Lawrence clearly had the complete opposite thought process for you, because the next category was first driver to lose their seat. And Lawrence, you went for...
I've also gone for Cordial.
You also went for Cordial, but in a different capacity, for first person to lose their seat rather than biggest positive surprise. Let's hear why you said that.
The lineups, when you look down the grid, I think Virtuosi is one where you can see a clear first and second driver in terms of how good Jack Doohan has been. And I think there is a possibility for Cordial to end up as firmly the second driver, and that might sort of hide how good he actually is and the speed that he has. So I think he might struggle.
Yeah, obviously Brad Benavidez, the only driver this season to lose his seat. Omri Cordial is still in his seat. Your reflection on that prediction, Lawrence?
It's very strange. I think in past seasons we could have said just about half the grid as someone that could lose their seat, and we would have been right. The fact, like you say, that only Brad Benavidez, has lost his seat this season is quite rare, really. But I do think that relative speed in Virtuosi, Jack Doohan is a hard teammate to have at the best of times. But clearly the situation with having Cordial there and what he brings to the team, works for them, and they're quite sort of comfortable to work with that. We know that Virtuosi are one of the teams that do need a bit of money bringing in from a driver, and that then enables them to have a driver like Jack Doohan, who's up there and getting the sponsors on TV and showing the team well and ultimately getting results, and who's managed to work himself into a really handy position in the standings now after a really tough finish. So yeah, I think I did all right with that one. I think I might have slightly redeemed myself, although I'm sure Emily will tell me otherwise.
We'll wait for Emily to give her thoughts at the end of this. Let's go into Aaron's prediction now. First driver to lose their seat in 2023.
I'm going to go for Ralph Boschung, much to Jim Kimberley's dismay.
Ralph Boschung, our first winner of 2023. And the rationale behind that?
He works very hard to get funding, and to almost put it into real world perspective, there are a lot of problems in the real world at the moment, so funding might be difficult. So there might be an occasion where he has to skip a race because he hasn't got the money for the seat or something. So I hope that doesn't happen, because I think Ralph is an excellent competitor, and obviously last season he was driving really well, then he picked up the injury and was in and out, and on his day he can be really, really effective. So hopefully he doesn't lose his seat, but that's who I'm going to put my money on that one.
I do actually. I think that's fair enough. I see the thought process behind that. He obviously did struggle with his injury last year. Aaron, your reflections on that prediction?
Could you imagine if he'd won the first race and then just mic dropped and left?
Retired from Formula 2.
I've won. Right, I'm off.
One
Completed
winning
it,
off.
mate.
Yeah. He has obviously seen out the season, which has been really nice, because obviously he struggled last season, didn't he? Especially with his injury, and there's been points in the past where he has struggled financially. Emily, we'll come to you for your reflections on those predictions.
Yeah, I think Lawrence has actually made a lot of sense. No, I can see why you would have said that. I mean, that made more sense than what Aaron had to say about Cordial, but no, I think that was quite realistic. And the same with Aaron, though, to be fair. Ralph has been in Formula 2 for quite a while now, and his injury last year obviously set him back a little bit. But then he went and won the first race. But this is the thing, we keep saying every week, it's just so unpredictable. You just don't know what's going to happen. And to be honest, I didn't really even realise that Brad was in trouble until, he just came out with a statement that he was being replaced because he lost his seat. So, yeah, but I think they were both... I can see where you came from with both of those answers.
And massive props to Ralph as well. You know, being a businessman as well as a driver, having to go around and get those sponsorship deals and fund his drive, and off the back of last season, you know, managing that injury and still performing to that level, and coming in for yet another season of F2 and winning the first race like he did. You know, what an incredible, you know, sort of addition to the sport we've had over the last however many years. But I think that prediction did make sense, because you never know with this sport, and like Aaron said, with the way that the world has been over the last year, you know, where that funding is going to dry up, and motorsport moves very, very quickly. And you almost expect with someone like Ralph, who's been around for so long, that's just not going to last forever, that at some point the carpet will be taken away from under your feet. So glad to see that hasn't happened, but definitely made sense as a prediction, I would say.
Just a quick question for everybody. So Fraser, you can come in on this as well. Just we've only had one driver drop off the grid this season, and Josh Mason has replaced him. Go and watch our interview with him. Cheeky little plug there. But how many drivers were fielded in 2022 on the F2 grid? Shoot a number at me.
It's going to be high, isn't it? 29. Oh, no, it's 22 drivers in front. No, sorry, I'm going to go with 31. 31.
Emily?
I have no clue. I don't know.
Pick a number, any number. Well, maybe not any, because that would be
Not
a
as
bit
high as
outrageous.
29, 30. 29 and 30.
You've got to pick one.
30.
Lawrence?
I don't think it was quite that high. I'm going to go 28.
Okay, so Lawrence, you were wrong, and at one point Emily and Fraser were both right. It was 29.
Should have stuck to my guns.
Yeah.
Emily, you should have as well. There's definitely been less staff turnover. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? There's definitely been...
Well, it technically are staff.
Yeah, I know. I'm in work mode. Definitely been less driver turnover this year, hasn't there? Which is really, really positive. It's the first time in the modern era of Formula 2 where we haven't seen a ridiculous amount of drivers who have lost their seats, which I think is really positive. First of all, for stability, and second of all, for the drivers themselves. You know, it's been really positive that you haven't had many drivers. I don't think Brad Benavidez particularly deserved to lose his seat either. In terms of it was obviously a funding thing rather than a performance thing. So long may that continue. In my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think otherwise if you get every season like 2022, you start to get a series with a reputation for chewing up drivers and spitting them out. And, you know, and increasingly people might think, well, why should I bother if I don't even know if I'm going to be around in the series in 3 months' time? I think having that stability that we've had this year is a massive positive in getting the best drivers there who are able to plan for an entire year, not just, I might be around for 2 months, I might not, so it's a bit uncertain, so I might look elsewhere. So yeah, massive positive, that stat there.
Absolutely. 7 driver changes in Abu Dhabi, and we'll be back up to 29 again. So, lovely. Okay, let's move on then. Again, we then moved on to the most disappointing season. Again, we said at the time that it's not something we like to say that a driver's had a disappointing season, but some drivers perhaps may have had a slightly less... the season didn't quite go to plan for them. So Aaron, shall we hear your prediction first?
Dennis Hauger.
Oh, that was a nice and short clip. Dennis Hauger. Okay, let's hear why you said that.
It's almost an expectation that he's gone to the champion team of the previous year for the second year in a row. And now if he doesn't fulfill that almost expected potential, everyone's going to look at him and go, hang on, how good really are you? Because he destroyed the field in Formula 3 a couple of seasons ago, and there was a lot of talk of him winning the title last year in F2, following Piastri's footsteps of winning F3, joining Prema, and so maybe a fresh start will be good for him.
It's not about my opinion, but I guess... I don't think that's a bad shout, to be fair, Aaron.
I mean, he's not been as disappointing as maybe if you're saying someone's going to have a disappointing season, he's 8th in the standings at the time of recording, but he is 50 points behind the highest placed Red Bull Junior, which is Ayumu Iwasa. So there really it lies his competition, because you need to be the top Red Bull Junior. Although I think AlphaTauri seats are pretty locked down. They've got more drivers than they know what to do with at the moment, because they've got Lawson, who's scoring points now. They've got Tsunoda, who's looking a bit more consistent. They've got this young guy called Daniel Ricciardo, who's coming back from an injury, who's very popular and looks like a future race winner, to be honest. So even if Iwasa was to pull off an amazing feat of a Kimi Raikkonen 3rd to 1st at the last round and scoop the championship, there's nowhere for him to go. So Dennis Hauger is kind of an afterthought at Red Bull at the moment, depending on what they want to do with their drivers. So yeah, he needed to perform better. He's done okay, but again, I think he's not lived up to expectation.
I know from our 2024 driver or grid predictions video, go and check it out if you haven't done so already. You predicted that Dennis Hauger will be back next year in Formula 2. Do you think that's a good thing? And do you think that he'll be gunning for the title in 2024?
He has to give the title a tilt in 24, otherwise Red Bull probably won't continue to back him, and then he'll need to move on somewhere else. Whether he stays in Formula 2 without the Red Bull backing or moves maybe to IndyCar, Formula E, there's other series out there. He might go to sports cars. So, he's a quick driver, no doubt about it. Maybe it's just this car that doesn't suit him, because Kushmani said that the F2 car suits him, and that's what's allowed him to perform this season after not showing particularly well in Formula 3. So it could just be that. It's this weird thing. If you put him in a Formula 1 car and suddenly he's beating Tsunoda and, scoring points in an AlphaTauri, you go, wow, where was this in F2? But it's just, Motorsport is a bit odd like that.
Yeah, completely agreed. Lawrence, let's hear your prediction for the most disappointing season. Here we go.
Pogacar is an interesting one. I think there is, as much as I do back him to perform very well. I think with the level of expectation, I think Jenny's absolutely right. With the amount of expectation on him, there is real potential for him to sort of disappoint this year.
Lawrence, it's been a pleasure having you on the F2 show for the last 2 years, but please see yourself out. No, I do there was a lot of expectation coming into the season for Teo Pogacar, because it was essentially win the championship or he's lost out, right? And that's the route you were going down.
Yeah, exactly. The level of expectation that is put on someone going into their 3rd season, especially someone who showed such immense talent and potential at such an early stage in Formula 2 like Teo Pogacar, is really quite unfair, the level of expectation that people like us put on someone like that. So there was always massive potential to disappoint, but of course here he is as the championship leader at the time of recording, and he looks set now to take the title. So obviously quite a poor prediction there in terms of if he could be disappointing. There was huge potential for it, but definitely didn't happen this year, which is really nice to see, because it is massive, the expectation on a 3rd season driver, as Aaron's just said, in terms of how we're already talking about Dennis Hauger for next year. So fingers crossed for Teo Pogacar that that results that he had this year can go some way to him eventually getting that seat in Formula 1. That's just become a little bit more complicated with Zhou Guanyu staying on with Alfa Romeo, but I think he will have still done enough this season to not have disappointed the team bosses in F1 and hopefully get that route into the top tier.
Can I just speak up for your prediction there? I've actually been a bit disappointed with Teo Pogacar. He's won one race.
But he's been driving a conservative way. He's not been flat out 100% every single race all season because he's been driving for points, not race wins. If he wasn't driving for the points, he would have won races this year. No,
I totally agree with that. But I think as the season's gone on, and he needs to, it's almost like a credibility thing for his championship. Like when the going got sort of tough last year for Drogovic, he pulled out those performances and race wins. Porsche hasn't done that. And it's not to slight his ability at all. I think he's a fantastic driver. And if Alfa Romeo had decided to move on one of their drivers and replace them with and put Théo Pourchaire in the Alfa or in the Sauber next year, then he'd have been well worthy of the seat. But just looking at results, loads of podiums, but he hasn't won since the first feature race of the season. So, and considering the pace that's been in the ART, it's a bit like Vesti's got 5 wins, Behrman's got 4, Victor Martins has 1, Iwasa's got 3 wins, Jack Doohan's scored 2 feature race wins, and Pourchaire's only win is like a distant memory at the start of the season. I think everyone had forgotten it because
that's so harsh.
It is harsh.
That is very, very harsh on Théo Pourchaire. I think the way I see it as he's him as the third season driver, sort of calmly seeing off, the challengers throughout the year that have all had their moments, but he has just been there scoring points the whole time, all the way through it. And he showed, especially in Bahrain, there were a few moves that he made on the brakes that really showed just how aggressive he can be. That he does have that in his locker, but just to hold back and be a bit more conservative through the season, I think it was definitely the right approach. And you mentioned how quick the ART is. He's not the only quick driver who's had that car as well. That his teammate Victor Martins, every time that they nail the setup of that car, he's got one of the fastest drivers on the grid and the F3 champion right next to him, trying to nick the positions off him. So I think he's dealt with that challenge really well too. So yeah, I think harsh there on Théo Pourchaire.
Emily, your thoughts on not only the predictions but also the comments that have just been thrown out there. I'm looking forward to this.
No, I think I can see where both halves of the story are coming from, because I think I can see what you mean, Aaron. Like, he hasn't really shown us a drive where we've all been like, oh my god, he can fight. But I think because it is his third year, and like I know I said this a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Monza, everybody knows that he's going to avoid any collisions that he can because he is racing for the points. So I think because it is his third year and because that championship title is so close, he knows that if he, decides to be a little bit late on the brakes or doesn't he, reckless overtakes, for example, then he's messed up. But I don't know. I feel like that's a good attribute to have, though, because you can be a driver that's really hungry and you really want the points, and then you make mistakes. And I mean, we mentioned him earlier, but you could say, for example, Charles Leclerc in Formula One. Like, he's a good driver, but it's those little mistakes that let him down. So if you are going to go to Sauber and if you are going to be an F1 driver, maybe it would be better, especially being in a midfield team as well, to be more consistent and get the points. But I can also see what you mean. Like, he hasn't really shown us anything where we've been like, wow, oh my God, he's hungry for this. He's a great driver. So I can.
He's absolutely going to smash the field by 20 seconds in Abu Dhabi now, isn't he? Just to make me look really silly. But you know what? I don't mind it because that's what I'm looking for. For a champion in a feeder series, I think you need to be able to show the whole package. And I think Pourchaire has got it. But I just want to see that, when the pressure's on, the title's on the line, deliver a race win when he really needs it. I think, Monza was that chance. Pole position, lead from the front, win the race. And, okay, Vesti's had problems, which meant he's allowed to extend the lead. But, he's playing the game that's in front of him. He doesn't need to win every race at the moment. So it's actually a really good trait. But I want to see him win.
No, I know what you mean. And I think for Dennis as well, like, I had the same prediction, like, at the beginning of the year. I thought he was going to be really good. I thought he was going to come in and everyone would be like, oh my God, he's the new Red Bull Junior driver. But he just hasn't really lived up to that. And, you know, we always say that it's so challenging. But there's 6 Red Bull junior drivers in F2, I think. And, you know, they're not just competing in their team, they're competing against each other. Because obviously we know Red Bull Academy drivers and just Red Bull in general. I mean, if you look at F1, they are lethal. Like, they will get rid of you if they don't think that you're performing well enough. So I think, again, I agree with Aaron. He needs to step up next year and prove that he is a good driver to stay within that junior academy, because otherwise they'll just get rid of him.
Absolutely. Let's move on again then. The final prediction, the 2023 Drivers' Champion, in your opinion. Aaron, let's start with your prediction.
Can't look past Jack Doohan, to be honest.
Jack Doohan. Let's hear.
Just see Emily's little heart breaking.
Yeah.
Pace. And if he puts it on pole position often enough, and he can control the race from the front by just disappearing, he'll win enough races, kind of the way that Djokovic won the championship last year, and sort of crush everybody else's hopes with just sort of sheer qualifying performance, making sure he's always there.
Yeah, you know what? He was arguably the favourite coming into this season. A lot of people were backing him. Hasn't quite materialised like he would have hoped. His early season form was pretty disappointing by his own standards. But yeah, I can see why you said that, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was quick in pre-season testing, and he'd finished before the wheel came off in Abu Dhabi. He was set to win the final race of the year, so the form was there. That first half of the season is a complete mystery as to why he wasn't able to talk to the car in the same way he was before. It was utterly bizarre. Like, he had from his first 3 races, he had 2 points. He got a podium in Jeddah, and then proceeded to score 4 points across the next 4 races, 4 points in Monaco. Yeah. It's just been dismal, really, apart from those 2 highs with the feature race wins.
Absolutely. We'll get Emily's thoughts on that, Emily's heartbroken thoughts on that in a minute. Lawrence, let's hear your prediction pre-season.
I think I'm going to plump for Ayumu Iwasa.
Wow.
I think...
Big statement.
Yeah, it was a big statement earlier on in the season. Not necessarily one of the favourites, but someone perhaps with an outside chance. Let's hear why.
Do you back his sort of ability to move up in that second season? And I think with his attitude and his pace, I think he has what it takes.
There you go. With his attitude and his pace, he has what it takes. Hasn't quite materialised. However, he has obviously had a real good run at the title, actually, Lawrence. Yeah, your thoughts on and reflections on that prediction?
Well, I think before we go any further, it's worth pointing out that Iwasa is one place higher up than Jack Doohan at the moment. Obviously, there's still the last round to go, so I could eat my words there. But yeah, no, I think especially coming off the back of the end of last season, obviously his performance in Abu Dhabi, and the way that he came off the back of winning that race, and in the press conference afterwards was just like, there's so much more I need to improve. And he just won, and it was the end of the season. It's like time to go and have a drink and celebrate. But he was already thinking of how he'd improve. And I just thought, this is the mindset of somebody that is really, really deadly serious about challenging for the title next year. And he has shown that at points this year. It's just that level of consistency hasn't quite been there. And he said himself, the Achilles heel has been qualifying for him in recent rounds, that he's just not been able to nail that, which, has felt like such a missed opportunity because, he says the pace has been in the car week in, week out. It's just not always been able to get that qualifying right. But, it's a process. He's learning in that second season. I'm really excited to see what he'll do next year. But yeah, a shame that it hasn't quite come to fruition. But, he still had a very, very impressive season. And, only 3 race wins, I think, this year. Only that one feature race win in Melbourne. But, still some impressive performances in there, and still such a high points tally and such a an ability to pick up points on the odd weekend, that even if he hasn't, necessarily lit up the highlight reels like someone like Ollie Behrman has, he's still right up there in the title fight.
Absolutely, very consistent this season, Ayumi Iwasa. Perhaps qualifying has let him down in some races, and obviously the only one feature race all season. Same as Teo Pourchaire, needs to win more feature races if he's going to return next season and if he wants to fight for the title. Emily, your thoughts on those predictions? Jack Doohan to win the title and Ayumi Iwasa to win the title.
Yeah, I feel like both of them, Jack and Iwasa, I don't feel like their qualifying has been that amazing this year, and I feel like that's what's let them both down. And I remember at the beginning of the season, Iwasa was, he was performing, like he was doing okay, and I thought, oh, you know what, he's definitely going to be up the top. And then he kind of just fizzled out. I don't know. And with Jack, it was the other way around. He was not great at the beginning of the season, had those 2 moments where everyone was like, oh, he's back, and then it kind of just fizzled away again. I don't know. Yeah, I think obviously I'm biased because I am a Jack Doohan fan, but I thought he was going to be... Yes, you may have noticed. I honestly thought he was going to be able to prove better results. But like Aaron said, it's just weird how it just didn't happen. And I think, as we were saying earlier, like with Teo, we never really see that drive from him as making, like, rash decisions when it's the sprint race or the feature race. But with Jack, I feel like you'd see that more. Like, him and Behrman have come together quite a few times this year, and they've done some really good racing between them, and you can hear on the radio how frustrated Jack gets and how he wants it. You can tell he wants it really bad, but he's just never been able to actually create that result apart from the odd couple times. So yeah, it's very sad. It makes me very sad, but hopefully maybe next year, who knows? But and the same for Iwasa. Yeah, I don't know. It's just strange. I just thought they would have performed better.
There you go.
In the championship, they should have done better.
But they were hoping to be title contenders, right? That's your point. I mean,
that's true.
Well, yeah, that's my point. And I mean, there's 4 drivers at the moment that we all thought, there's only one champion. That's what I mean. Yeah. Like, the competition is so tight, you can't make these like decisions based on knowledge or facts. Like, it is literally just pure luck.
And you look, you say it's how tight it is as well. You look at, well, why isn't Iwasa doing better in qualifying? And you think, well, half the weekends, because it's Pourchaire and it's Vesti that are up there, or Martins as well. Mm-hmm. It's had an unbelievable record in qualifying. And then, the next thing you know, it's Ollie Behrman putting it on pole with a bent steering rack as well. Yeah. So it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to be off by a little bit, a couple of rounds in a row, to all of a sudden look like a pretty bad qualifier in this series. And just that tiny last bit of percent for Iwasa, I think, has hurt him. And those mystery rounds, as we've said, for Jack Doohan earlier in the season.
Exactly. I mean, when you've got rookies like Martins and Behrman doing their thing, how are you supposed, you can't stop Ollie most weekends. He's just there all the time. It makes you really look at the rookies coming up. Like how we were saying about Dennis, we thought he was going to be great. No one predicted Ollie to be... Aaron, not even you predicted Ollie to be your biggest surprise. Ollie Behrman superfan.
I didn't want to get too carried away, and if he had a disappointing season, I didn't want to be too sad.
Oh, yeah, I feel that pain, yeah.
Emily, I would like you to predict the boys. I'd like you to grade the boys' homework, please. If that's all right. A star being a very good prediction at the start of the season, or some very good predictions at the start of the season. F being the worst. Do you want to start off with Aaron's grade? How would you grade Aaron's predictions from the start of the season?
I actually thought Aaron's your predictions were actually good. Apart from one, they actually made sense.
Which one?
I think you know what one. I think you know. I think everyone knows. Listeners just rolled their eyes.
Never have tipped Jack Doohan to win the title.
Yeah.
Oh,
what was I thinking?
Yeah, it was that one. What were you thinking? No, I feel like it would be too harsh to mark you down purely on your Amory Cordial comment and just the...
And I think that would be perfectly fair, actually. I think that would be reasonable.
We should say that. I think I'll give Aaron. I'm not giving anyone an A star because they weren't that amazing, right? But I think I'll give Aaron. I'll give you like a B because I thought your predictions were there, but that one just like really let you down. Like, I'm sorry, I just And then
That's fair enough.
Yeah, and then Lawrence, I'd give Lawrence like an A because I felt like Lawrence has made a bit more sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm happy with a B. I've got 2 A's in my name. It's all good. I don't need any more.
Okay. You can have a C if you want one.
I don't have any of those, actually.
I didn't take part in the pre-season predictions. I did make 1.5 predictions, really. I predicted the 2023 Drivers' Champion. I'm not actually going to ask you whether you want to hear it. I'm just going to play it anyway.
My pick for the title is a little bit boring, to be fair. Théo Pourchaire, I do think he's going to come back, and I do think he's going to do the business, and I think he's going to put himself in a really good position for a Sauber, Audi, whatever they're going to be called, drive for next season for 2024.
The first half of that was pretty good. The prediction of him being in Formula 1 obviously didn't transpire. I said 1.5. The reason I said 1.5 is because there was a little half prediction. I didn't actually predict it because I didn't predict this category, if you like. But it was mentioned at one point in the podcast. So I'm going to play this.
Considered for, you know what, Ralph Boschung was someone that I considered for first new winner. He's still yet to win a race in Formula 2.
If I'd like to say, if you're watching this, we've never heard these clips before. We don't know where they're from.
Emily, your thoughts on a Théo Pourchaire champion prediction and a Ralph Boschung first new winner of the season prediction, Emily?
I remember you messaged me on the 3rd of September and you said, why was Fraser the only person at Inside F2 to predict Théo Pourchaire to win the championship? And then you just wrote end of the podcast. I can't even comment on that, Fraser. You think you're so cool.
Thank you. I can hear the applaud in the background. Thank you very much. Shall I bow?
For audio listeners, Fraser is sitting there in his office, smirking like a Cheshire cat, just grinning away. I don't remember that Ralph Boschung one. You've absolutely made that up. You've pre-recorded it. Oh, looks so cool. It's like, I'll play it. They'll never know.
That is true. Yeah. No, go back at the beginning of the season, pre-season predictions, and there was a little shout out as Ralph Boschung, newest winner in Formula 2.
I reckon Fraser's saved up all this money and he's given Théo Pourchaire and Ralph Boschung only had enough change to give it to Ralph once, but these super Mechachrome engines that never break and are super powerful. Everybody else has got the other ones that just sort of
those don't exist. Those don't exist.
I think we've just got to say that you were just really lucky, Fraser. Like, anything can happen in Formula 2 and you just happen to say the right things, which is really annoying. But,
Of course. Well, we'll see next season when the predictions come around again. And if I start predicting the results again right next year, then I think someone else is going to have to come be the host, and I'll come and be the guest.
Questions will be asked.
That is true. Exactly.
I think Fraser might actually be a prophet. I think what we might need you to do is next time Nico Rosberg takes a photo outside a garage, if you could jump in and take a photo as well, that might neutralise it somehow.
So it's Fraser like the Harry Potter to Rosberg's Voldemort.
Exactly.
Amazing. We squeezed a Harry Potter reference into a Formula 2 podcast. Incredible. All right, let's call it there then, guys. That's all we have time for today. We hope you've enjoyed this fun little reflection of the F2 show. As always, if you've enjoyed the show, make sure you give it a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you're watching on YouTube, head over to our Spotify channel for exclusive content and Formula 2 interviews. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.